Breaking tonight from London, a political firestorm no one saw coming. In less than 48 hours, one of two powerful men, Mayor Sadiq Khan or King Charles III, could see his career or his crown politically destroyed. What began as a policy announcement has erupted into the most dangerous constitutional crisis Britain has faced in generations. 5 days ago, Khan stood before cameras at City Hall to unveil his newest initiative, the London Citizenship Charter. Every business in the capital would be required to sign diversity and inclusion agreements and or face fines reaching $50,000. Khan called it a new moral contract for a modern city, promising that London would lead Britain into the 21st century, whether the establishment likes it or not. Inside Buckingham Palace, those words landed like an earthquake. Within hours, King Charles invoked a power almost no one remembered existed, the Crown Intervention Authority, a buried clause dating back 3 centuries that allows the monarch to challenge the legality of a local government's decision. The King sent a private letter to Parliament asking whether the mayor had overstepped his constitutional limits. But then the palace did something unheard of. It released that letter publicly. That single act transformed a quiet constitutional query into an open declaration of war. Political London froze. Commentators called it the moment the monarchy re-entered politics. For 300 years, British sovereigns have remained neutral, symbols, not participants. Yet now the king himself had publicly questioned an elected official, and the elected official was not about to stay silent. Khan's response came the next afternoon, live on every network. Standing beneath the grey London sky, he thundered, "The unelected king believes he knows better than 8 million Londoners who voted for change. This is not 1825, it's 2025. I will not be silenced by a crown that has forgotten the people it claims to serve." Applause erupted from supporters outside City Hall, but inside Westminster, jaws dropped. What Britain had just witnessed was no longer policy disagreement. It was constitutional confrontation. The question now, had the Mayor of London just taken on the crown itself? By the time the sun set over the Thames, Sadiq Khan's defiance had gone viral. The mayor, who once stood as a symbol of modern London, was now a political arsonist, daring to challenge the crown itself. Cameras captured every tremor in his voice, every flash of anger in his eyes. "London will not be ruled by inherited privilege," he declared. The crowd roared, but behind him chaos was unfolding. Journalists on the scene described an extraordinary moment. Khan's press secretary, David Bellamy, frantically slicing his hand across his throat, the universal signal to stop. He was begging the mayor to end the speech before it crossed the point of no return. Khan didn't. He doubled down. "How many palaces does one family need while ordinary Londoners can't afford rent?" The words cut like a blade. Twitter erupted within minutes. But inside Westminster, panic spread like wildfire. Senior Labour figures watched in disbelief as their own mayor dismantled decades of political restraint on live television. Within hours, damage control meetings began across the capital. Aides whispered that Khan's own team looked terrified. One advisor reportedly said he's feeding off the outrage, but he doesn't see the cliff he's running toward. Then came the story that turned a scandal into a national crisis. James Morrison, a 73-year-old veteran of the Falklands War, appeared on Sky News. He'd lost his leg fighting for Britain, and now, he said, he'd lost his home too. Evicted from his modest flat in Cudden to make room for social housing quotas under Khan's new policies. Through tears, he said, "I fought for this country, and now Britain has no room for me." His story hit the nation like a gut punch, shared more than 300,000 times in a single day. Suddenly, the moral high ground Khan had claimed began to crumble. While veterans slept on couches, leaked receipts showed City Hall spending millions on diversity retreats, including $18,000 for a weekend at a luxury spa in Surrey. Overnight, the narrative flipped. The reformer became the elitist. Even loyal voters began turning. Sarah Jenkins, a retired nurse, posted a tearful video viewed over 1 million times. I voted for him twice. I believed in him, but he cares more about his image than us. Polls nosedived, an 18-point drop in 72 hours. Among voters over 50, his approval collapsed to 19%. Even progressives under 30 were abandoning him. Westminster insiders now whispered the unthinkable. Could Sadiq Khan fall not to an election, but to a constitutional showdown with the king himself? And the next move came not from the mayor, but from the palace. Yesterday evening, Buckingham Palace glowed gold under the chandeliers of the Grand Reception Hall. Diplomats murmured politely over champagne until King Charles stepped up to the lectern. What followed, palace aides say, was the most political speech delivered by a monarch in 70 years. Charles's voice was steady, deliberate, regal. The traditions that bind this nation together, he said, cannot be discarded by those who mistake temporary power for permanent authority. London belongs to all Britons, not to the ideological whims of any single mayor. The room froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even veteran diplomats later admitted they'd never heard anything like it. It was a rebuke, clear as crystal, and the Crown pushing back. Insiders reveal the king had personally rewritten that speech 3 times, each version sharper than the last. Palace staff begged him to soften it. He refused. He wanted it unmistakable, a line drawn in history. That night at 11:23 p.m, the mayor struck back online. From his official account, Sadiq Khan tweeted, "The Crown lectures me about tradition while protecting inherited privilege. I answer to Londoners, not palaces." 17 minutes later, the tweet was gone, deleted. But screenshots spread faster than fire in dry grass. Both sides of the aisle pounced. Political strategists called it amateur hour. As one analyst put it bluntly, you don't pick a fight with the monarchy at midnight on Twitter, then panic delete it. By morning, the fallout was catastrophic. Labour leader Keir Starmer broke his silence with a terse, devastating statement. Sadiq Khan's views do not represent the Labour Party. For a sitting mayor, that's not just a reprimand. That's political execution in real time. Financial markets reacted instantly. The pound slipped 0.3% within minutes of Charles's speech, a $1.2 billion loss to London's financial sector in a single day. International investors began whispering, if the capital itself can't hold steady, can Britain? On the streets, anger boiled over. Thousands flooded Trafalgar Square, waving Union Jacks and shouting for Khan's resignation. Counter-protesters clashed with royalists near Westminster Abbey. By nightfall, 12 arrests, 7 injured officers and 3 police vehicles damaged. Reporters on the ground compared it to the 2011 riots, only this time it wasn't class or crime tearing London apart. It was identity. Who really speaks for Britain? The people's mayor or the people's king? And inside City Hall, the walls were starting to crack. Inside City Hall, panic had turned to paralysis. Staffers whispered about exhaustion and fear. Deputy Mayor Sophie Linden reportedly threatened to resign during an emergency meeting, accusing Khan of crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. Another senior aide was overheard saying the mayor's political judgment had completely collapsed. For those closest to him, it was painful to watch. One longtime aide described him as obsessed, isolated and endlessly scrolling Twitter, trapped in his own echo chamber. He was no longer governing, he was fighting for survival. And then came the story that detonated everything. At dawn, the Telegraph published leaked internal emails from Khan's office, documents dated September, weeks before the mayor's first confrontation with the king. The emails were explosive. Khan's top strategists had discussed in cold political language the need to manufacture a conflict with royal authority to energise progressive voters. One message from his chief advisor read, "We need a villain. The Crown is perfect, unelected, wealthy, traditional, everything our base opposes." Those 16 words flipped the entire narrative. This wasn't righteous defiance. It was calculated provocation, a strategy, a political gambit gone catastrophically wrong. If true, Khan hadn't been the victim of royal overreach. He'd been the architect of his own downfall. Within hours, constitutional scholar David Starkey went live on BBC, calling the emails the most cynical political manipulation I've seen in half a century. The opposition smelled blood. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch wasted no time. In a fiery press conference, she faced the cameras and thundered. While Sadiq Khan attacks the king, real Londoners suffer. Crime is up 23%. Housing affordability is at record lows. 12,000 businesses have fled the city in just 1 year. And his response? Attack the one institution that still unites this country. Her speech hit like a hammer, and the numbers backed her up. Knife crime in London has risen 31% since Khan took office. Average rents have jumped nearly 50%. Small businesses are fleeing the capital in record numbers. By the time the evening polls were released, everything had changed. For the first time since 2016, Conservatives were leading Labour in Greater London 42% to 31%, a once unthinkable reversal. Political analysts began whispering, was London about to turn blue for the first time in nearly a decade? And with the mayor's credibility crumbling, 3 dates loomed on the horizon, each one potentially fatal. The clock is ticking and every second feels heavier than the last. Sadiq Khan faces 3 decisive moments in just 7 days, each one capable of ending his political career. Monday, a vote of no confidence inside London's Assembly, where even his own Labour councillors are rumoured to be turning against him. Thursday, an emergency debate in Parliament, the Conservatives demanding a formal investigation into whether Khan violated constitutional limits by defying the monarchy. Saturday, a wave of protests expected to flood central London, with over 100,000 royalists marching through the city, potentially the largest demonstration since the 1936 abdication crisis. It's no longer about policy, it's about survival for Khan and for Britain's political balance itself, because right now Britain's capital is tearing itself apart in real time. Downtown London is divided between 2 visions of the future, one where elected leaders can challenge old institutions without consequence, and another where the crown still symbolises unity, stability and identity. The question gripping every newsroom, every pub, every dinner table is simple. Has Khan just committed political suicide, or has King Charles crossed a line no monarch should? Inside Downing Street, advisors are warning that this crisis could morph into something bigger, a legitimacy war between democracy and tradition. And on social media, Britain is split down the middle. Joan, stand with Khan, trends 1 minute, Chadden defend the crown the next. Meanwhile, international markets are reacting violently. The pound fell again today. Investors are calling London too unstable. Analysts whisper that if this continues, the city could lose its place as Europe's financial heartbeat. Khan himself, insiders say he barely sleeps. One aide described him as haunted, pacing his office at 3 a.m, staring at a portrait of Churchill and muttering, "They'll remember me for this." But history doesn't remember the loudest voice. It remembers the moment power shifts, and that moment may be just hours away. If Monday's no confidence vote fails, Khan's political career could end before the week does. If it passes, the king faces the unthinkable, a monarchy forced to coexist with a defiant city that no longer recognises its moral authority. Either way, Britain will never be the same. So what happens now? Does Khan resign before the vote to save what's left of his legacy? Does Charles intervene again, risking accusations of royal overreach? Or do both sides dig in, turning London into a battleground between democracy and dynasty? You tell us, whose side are you on? Is this the dawn of a modern republic or the rebirth of royal power? Drop your answer in the comments below. Because this isn't just London's crisis, it's Britain's crossroads. And the next 48 hours will decide whether a mayor or a monarch writes the next chapter of history. Subscribe and stay tuned, because this story isn't ending. It's only beginning.